On this week's live stream, learn 3 different ways to transform your boring old variable box into an interactive progress bar. Plus, we head back to Sweden to check in on a former Chromeworks student and see his amazing new pen and paper space shooter. All this and more coming up on the Chromeworks live stream. Good morning, Internet. It's Mr. Tomec back, and my microphone's turned on. Bravo for me. Nice to see everybody here again. We've got lots of action happening in the chat, and it looks like we have a few viewers today, which is nice to see. So yeah, lots to talk about this week, including we're going to be talking quite a bit about Squid Game, I think, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the Scratch community about that. So we'll get right to that. I did a little Skype again this week with my son Jeffrey, who's off in Sweden studying game design at an elite Swedish gaming academy, and he's been doing some amazing work there. You haven't seen the half of it yet, but today I'm going to show you his first little project that he whipped together in the course of a couple of days, and wow, it was impressive. And that's just the beginning of what he's working on there. So I think it's been really cool showing you guys a little bit of where this could go. If you're really interested in game design and you want to turn this into a career, here's a kid who's actually doing it, and you can kind of see what it's like going to school with him. Anyway, and what else was I going to say? And we're also going to be doing quite a in-depth look here at progress bars. I got interested in that when I was looking at Squid Game stuff this week, and I thought that I would do a little lesson just on how to do different kinds of progress bars. I did some research and found all kinds of different techniques, and it's just an example of how Scratch is a Swiss Army knife that you can use to do all kinds of cool stuff in different ways, just depending on how you work with it. All right, let's get right onto the Squid Game topic, though. So I'm joined by a whole bunch of people in the chat, and I see them already talking about Squid Game here. Over in the YouTube chat, Paddler Games here is saying the Scratch team is taking down Squid Game projects, and this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So you guys know that I have produced a fairly elaborate version of Red Light, Green Light from Squid Game that I've been using as the basis of a tutorial series. It's been a fantastically popular tutorial series. I'm up over 4,000 views right now, and it's just been going like gangbusters. But we've always been kind of a little worried about the content because we worked our best to make the game PG rated and not to do anything inappropriate in it. And of course, everyone is talking about this game and or talking about Squid Game, and the problem is, of course, that it's designed for kids who are much older than the typical audience for Scratch. And so it's been a dilemma for us. Like, I really feel like kids of all ages are hearing about this. It's based on topics that are related to childhood games. And so it's something that naturally kids are going to be interested in. So do we plug our ears and pretend that it's not happening at all? Or do we give them a chance to engage with the information without actually watching the show? And that was kind of where we landed here at Chromeworks after talking about this a while. Everyone's going to be chatting about Chromeworks at school. All you kids know that there's been nothing but that talked about for weeks and weeks, and we can't simply pretend that nobody has seen it and nobody knows about it. So while everyone's talking about it, let's give kids a chance to play around and play a game that's related to it, to make Scratch projects related to it. And then regardless of whether they watch the show, and most of them probably shouldn't, they still get a chance to interact with the material, and that's where I've been coming down with it. So yeah, there's quite a bit of discussion in the chat right now about what the Scratch team has done. They've taken a very different view of it, and in the last couple of days, they've started taking down Squid Game projects. One after another, they're disappearing from the internet. And so I think it's only a matter of time before my Squid Game project gets taken down, which is really unfortunate. I'm going to have to find another way to get people to interact with this material if they want to keep doing this tutorial. So I'm just looking at the YouTube chat here. So So yeah, so Paddler Games was who just dropped in was telling us that he had seen that these things were coming down all over the place. I'm joined over on Discord by a couple of by the regular crew. Funny animator Jim's here. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Mr.
Yeah, and Kian's here from Ottawa. He hasn't been very chatty lately, and Deck's here from London as well. Good morning, Deck.
Uh,
So we were chatting just before the show started about what's been happening with these Squid Game projects. Deck, what have you been noticing online?
yeah, so say if I went onto the Scratch search bar and I typed Squid Game, it comes up with quite a few projects that they've been deleted, but then you can still see the project. You can't tap into it and go inside the project, but you
Mm-hmm.
can thumbnail and it clearly says this game got deleted. Go to my profile and play the game. So
Yeah, I'm going to show you that right now, guys. So keep going. Sorry, Deck, I interrupted you, but
yeah,
yeah, I just found an
um,
example of that. Uh,
and yeah, and then they're saying yeah, this Beovin, that's the person I saw,
yeah.
and some other few people, and it's some people are saying before they say well this one is definitely going to get taken down, so remix it and unshare remix an unshared project before it get your one takes get taken down so that you can
Yeah.
just play it.
Yeah, so that seems to be what's happening. There's still hundreds of Squid Game projects here,
Yeah.
but it seems like one by one they're getting taken down as the Scratch team finds out what's going on here. Um,
I
it,
also,
you can see how much love and effort has been put into this. I'm just going on and on and on with these Squid Game projects. Look at all of them on the server here. I've never seen anything quite like this in Scratch. Maybe Among Us was the last time I saw something that everyone in the Scratch user community jumped onto so with so much excitement and verve. Eh? I have look at all these projects. They just keep going and going and going and going. Anyway, so more and more, I'm not sure if all these projects are going to be taken down or not, but it certainly looks like a lot of them are. And sorry, Jim,
To
what were you
be
going to
honest, I
say?
think it
Sorry,
is.
let's
There
let Jim
is some.
talk. Sorry, Jim, go
To
ahead.
be honest, I think there is some like randomness to it. Like, there's been other events in the Scratch community, even recent ones, where like in the last month or two, where there was something that was not inappropriate for kids, but some part of that was fine for kids to be doing, but and then when people uploaded projects of them, then those got taken down because they could possibly refer to something else that's not appropriate, right? But then there's all these projects, and then it just seems like very random which ones get taken down. And
Yeah,
then like what's happening here, there's some projects that look like they're still there, but are actually not if you click on them. And some projects seem completely normal but get taken down, and other projects that are like maybe slightly more violent or whatever don't. So it is kind of random still,
yeah.
which really
yeah.
sucks.
We,
And some projects, they put the Squid Game tag, and
mhm.
I think it makes it easier for the Scratch community, the Scratch team to take them down because they've been tagged as Squid Game.
Right, yeah. That's it. I
Someone
think they
does
don't
it,
have the
so
resources to go through all these files and delete them, but whenever someone flags one to them or whenever they encounter one on their travels, they seem to be taking it down. So you're saying I'm just going in through these files here, just more and more and more of them. It just never ends here. There must be thousands of Squid Game projects on here. It just doesn't stop. It's a little crazy anyway. Um,
Yeah, it could be that people are reporting the projects. I haven't thought about that too much. Like it's some like if one person could report a project, I don't know if that gets to Scratch Team's desk or whatever.
Yeah. So, especially I think new stuff that's being posted. Yesterday, I shared a catch-up file, which is basically all the coding that we did in part two of the tutorial last week. And so I posted that so that people who were starting in the middle of the tutorial would be able to catch up. And that got taken down by Scratch yesterday. So that's the latest piece of Scratch Squid Game content that I uploaded, and that got pulled right away. Though my original game is still on the server here for now. I'm looking at it right now, and it seems to be in good shape. It has been marked not for everyone, NFE, which is fair enough because this is not stuff that you want a 7-year-old looking at, but it's certainly not a violent game. There's just when characters get eliminated, they simply get a little red elimination marker across their body, which is not all that particularly unsettling. Let me just kill myself here. There you see. That's not violent or particularly scary, I don't think, but it's just the association with Squid Game, I think, is the concern that that the Scratch team has. So they have pulled the catch-up file, but not the regular file, which shows just how inconsistent they're being about this. I have a feeling that within the next couple of days, though, this will probably be pulled. And fair enough, they're allowed to do this if they want to, but I don't see this kind of interest that students have in a pop culture topic as necessarily being dangerous, and certainly not something we can put a lid on. There's no way we're going to stop kids from being aware that this TV show is out there. I don't think that young kids should be watching this show, but I still think that they're going to engage with this material no matter what. So let's give them healthy, non-violent ways for them to interact with this topic, has been my thought. Anyone else have any thoughts about this? Good morning to A&W Adventures on the YouTube chat, by the way. And USB Type-C is also chatting with us. Paddler Games has been chatting with us here as well. So we got a couple of new users here who I haven't seen before. Hi to everyone who's new to the channel. But please stay and leave us a comment. If you want a shout out, please give us just tell us where you're from so that we can give you a little shout out on the stream and get a sense of where our viewers are. We don't need your home address. We just want to know what city you come from, or if you're from a faraway country, you can at least tell us that anyway. So please share that with us. Okay, anyone else on the Squid Game thing? Can I move on? Yeah, okay. I think so. One of the things I wanted to show today, and it's they've kind of sucked a little bit of the life out of this, but I do have one of my co-op students has been working really hard on a Squid Game trailer that I wanted to show you. My student's name is Abraham Lin, and he's been working all week on a fantastic little trailer and wee video. You know that with our major game releases, we like to release a trailer just to kind of give you a sense of the action that's going on in my game and just try to whip up a bit of interest in the tutorials. So I thought I'd give you guys a little look at the trailer that he worked on while the game is still up here. So let's do that right now. What a fantastic little bit of video editing that was. Abraham worked really hard on that, and I'm proud of him. So he'd never done a movie trailer before. Most people haven't. And so it's a really fun little video editing experience. If you're looking to play around with video editing, trailers are a lot of fun because of the quick cuts and the short attention span that they demand. You have to really get into the core of something and find the most exciting little bits to do it. One of the filmmaking projects that I often do with new students is I get them to pick a movie like Star Wars or something like that, for example, and download a version of the movie and then cut it into a trailer. Just find the most exciting bits and find a way to tell a big long 2-hour story in 1 minute of quick clips, and I often have a lot of fun with that. So congratulations to Abraham for a great little trailer. I think he did a really good job with that. Did you guys in Discord like it?
Yeah, it was awesome, especially the music really
Yeah.
gave that really good energy.
Yeah,
I
The
love it.
essence.
it makes you want to play the game for sure, eh? So anyway, we just make these projects for fun. In most cases, we're not really trying to. We just want to get as many kids as possible looking at this stuff, and that's why we kind of blow this stuff up in trailers. We're not certainly not making any money off of this stuff, but this has been a great little project for my co-op students, and very pleased to be able to show it to you guys for what it's worth right now. Okay, guys, let's move on to some more content here. I have so while I was working on Squid Game, one of the suggestions that Jim made when he play tested the game for me was that we needed a progress bar at the bottom of the screen. This is a stripped down version of the Squid Game project, and you can see what I did here with a project bar right here along the bottom of the screen. And so it's a really nice visual way to let your players know how far they've progressed towards some kind of a goal without having to read numbers. It's a nice little visual indicator. And Jim was spot on when he suggested this is what we should do with Squid Game, and I was very happy to implement that. But while I was playing around with it, I realized that there's really no consistent way to do this kind of project in Scratch. I've just put out a shared project called Progress Bars in Scratch. I'm going to share it in both chats here, and you guys can have a look at the finished project. I'm going to be working today on a version that has some of the features disabled so that I can kind of enable them one at a time. But the basic idea is we have 3 different progress bars here. You can click the green flag, and if you hit the up and down buttons on the screen here, you can change the value of these variables up or down. You can also hit the right or left arrow keys and see how all 3 of these progress bars are tracking the same thing. We have a score variable here that goes from 0 to 100, and you can change it just by doing that, and then see how that's reflected on the screen here. So let me talk about all the different ways you can create this progress bar. We've got 3 different ways listed here, and every one of them is a dramatically different way of doing it. So the first method, and definitely the one for new users, is called, or I call it, the costume method, right? And all that entails is we go into our costumes here, and I started with a drawing of the background image that we're using to hold our progress bar, and it's the same for each of these projects. And I filled it up with a red, and then started creating new costumes with progressively less of this in. So each one of these costumes is numbered. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 here. I don't know why I named this one 10. There we go. So 1 through 10 here. They're all numbered, and each one represents 10% of the bar being filled up here. So 50%. I had to kind of eyeball it. It was a little bit tricky. What I ended up doing was dragging this bar out to about half of its current width, and then trying to draw a bar that was 1/5 of that. Then I basically drew that shape, and then like what I estimated was 1/5, and then I copied it and pasted it across the width of the thing to see if it actually added up to about half the width of the bar here, just by doing that. And then I adjusted it until I had something that was pretty close. Now this doesn't have to be perfect anyway, and you can just eyeball it kind of. So how do we implement this in the code? We just get it to flip between these costumes based on what the score is in our game. So let's have a look at the code here. We're just positioning this costume here, and we're telling it to switch costume to the score. So the score is the score is from 0 to 100. We only want it to be between 1 and 10. So when I take a score and divide it by 10 and then round it off, we're left with a number from 1 through 10 here. And so we're just going to switch the costume. So right now we're at, so our score right now is 40. Let me raise it up here to, let's play with this number a little bit. Let's get my program going. Where'd my arrow go? There we are. Yeah, as I move the arrow key up, you can see my score, when it's in between numbers, so I'm at 48 now, it's basically rounding that number up. So my score is 48, over 10 is 4.8. And then we're rounding it, which will make it 5. And so the final output here is 5, which means that the costume will switch to costume 5. Now, there's some great things about using this method. You can add as many costumes as you want as well. So you could have 20 costumes here and have it go up in gradients of 5 if you wanted a little more accurate. The nice thing about this is you can position it on the screen. It's all in one piece. You can resize it and do all kinds of stuff with it. The rest of these guys are all done with 2 different pieces, which makes them not work quite as well if you're maneuvering stuff around the screen. You have to keep playing with your numbers to get everything set up right. The downside, though, of course, is that it's not very responsive. It just snaps to whatever the closest number is, so you don't get the sense that there's increments here that are very closely done. So I don't mind this method, and it's definitely the one I would recommend for beginner users. I'm going to show you a second method here that's much more complicated, and that is the clone method. And so what I decided to do was I drew just a little red square here. It's just a tiny little thing, and I superimposed it on top of this second bar here. Let me connect it here, and we'll see what it looks like. And it's basically making clones of that little, whoa, let's go click the green flag here again. There we go, that's working properly. So you can see that it's raising it and lowering it in much smaller increments as we change the value of this variable. And what we're actually doing is creating little clones of that little red sliver. Every time the score increases, we're creating a new clone immediately to the right of the other one. Let's go have a look under the hood here and see what's going on. I've drawn a custom block here, guys, that you can feel free to grab for your own code that takes care of all the details of this. You basically just have to set up some variables inside your game. You need a variable called score or whatever it is that you're keeping track of. And you basically just have to figure out how wide your screen is here, the area of your screen is that's going to be filled up with your bar. In this case, I figured out the maximum width was 274. Now, your real progress bar probably isn't going to be that big, but so you just got to figure that out, and you can do it again with trial and error, right? So as I'm dragging this out here, I can go all the way up to 100 and find out that's at 274. But if I have a smaller progress bar, I can try a smaller number in here, and I can see what a bar at 200 would look like just by going this far. So if I drew something, I could just use this bar here and play around with these numbers until I got to a bar that was the proper width for this particular project here. And you can see that it's letting me go to 220 now. So 274 was what I came up with in trial and error. The other information you're going to need here is what the starting X is, the X location where your thing's going to start, and the Y location as well. So this is just the coordinates, which is 100X and a Y of 5. And that, what? 100? I didn't think I started at an X of 100. Draw progress, start X. Huh. I'm not quite sure what I did here, because I thought it was minus 100X that I started at here. Anyway.
I don't think the start X and start Y are being used in the block, are they?
Oh yeah, they are actually down here. Well, only to delete the sprite.
Wait, that works? Start X. You can put it in the clone? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I think that I might have messed something up here. It's working, but I'm not quite sure what I did. I'm going to have another look at this code. So the way the code is basically working is if as I move to the right here, and the clones are being created, but what happens when I move to the left and I don't want those clones there anymore? I only want certain clones to be deleted here. And so what I'm doing is I'm saying if the X position of the clone is greater than the X position of the actual sprite that we're using here, the reference sprite, then it just deletes itself. And so every clone is basically just constantly checking to see whether it's to the left or the right of the original clone. It's of the original reference object. Really an interesting way of doing it. And I thought this worked quite well. The tricky part here, though, is this exposition of clone method is inside the clone method sprite, and you're not going to find that. Like if I go into my sensing blocks here and drag out a reporter block here and try to pick that sprite, I'm not going to find that sprite on the list here. So you actually have to go to a different sprite, grab the proper name of it, and then drag it in here. It's a little bit of a hack that I've talked about in other lessons as well, and that really and that will let you get this reporter block with the proper name of the object. And so we can get the clone to compare itself to the original reference point's position and then get it to delete itself if it's in the wrong spot. Let's look at the rest of this code here. So basically what I'm doing here is at the end of every time around this loop here, I'm setting my score to a new variable called old score. And then we're going ahead and changing the variable. And now we can compare the old score to the new score. And if the score is changed, if it's not the same, then we're going to draw that clone, basically. What this formula here does is basically take that range of the score from 0 to 100, and it does a cross-multiplying method, basically. So we take the score, divide it by the maximum score. So if our score is 50 and our max score is 100, we end up with 0.5 or whatever, and then we multiply that by the maximum width of the screen, which is 274 here. And so that we can take that percentage basically of the score between 1 and 100 and drag it out to the actual width of the screen that way. So we're just creating clones here, and then that are mapped out to the position of the object that we're using to clone here. And calibrating it so that it's at exactly the number that matches up with our score. Anyway, so I'm a little bit confused by how I got 100 there. I was working on this in a rush yesterday, and I got something working, the start X. So it doesn't actually make reference to that start X here. What happens if I change that number to like minus 100 here, for example? Does that change the way this works at all? So it seems like that number doesn't really affect the actual... I know that it had to do with deleting the clones. We were using that in the delete clones. If exposition equals start... Oh! The only place I used start X was at the beginning where I wanted to delete the first clone because there was a little bit of overlap here. Okay, you know what? I don't even know if this block of code is particularly necessary. So that start X variable really isn't even important in this particular case. It doesn't say. So I'm going to be reworking this code, I think, after the session here, and I don't think we need that start X anymore. We're just positioning it all here. Okay, sorry to lead you astray with that, guys. I'm going to show you the third method, and that method was the most interesting one, I thought, and that's using the pen tool. Now, the pen tool is not very good for drawing straight lines. Let me show you something here. So if you're making clones of this circle here, like as in this case, you end up with a bar. So I drew a really thick line. I started it here and I had it draw out to there. You can see the code here. I'm basically saying go to a start position, minus 122, and then draw a line to the right here. The problem with that, though, is you don't get a nice solid edge on your line here. And in fact, the dot is bigger than the line that's trailing behind it. So it looks a little bit weird. What I decided to do instead was to draw a line that was basically a vertical line and then have it repeat itself as it was going along here. Let me show you the code for that one. I'm going to plug that one in. This one's called the pen method, and let's connect it here and get it running. I have to do an erase all here. Hold it. I have to disconnect this code first. There we go. All right, so it's the top one is done in this pen method here. And so what I'm actually getting it to do is to draw a line from the bottom left corner up to the top, And then as the X value goes up, it starts drawing more and more lines vertically along here. And we end up with a very nice little bar here that we can move around using code. Let me show you the code for that pen method here. So I've created another custom block, and this one actually works properly. So we do starting coordinates -132, comma 10, and you can see if I change these numbers, they actually do change inside the code here. So if I go -120, for example, you can see right away that I get some a white spot here on the left here where it doesn't fill out. So let's go back to -132. This is a really cool one because it's interactive and you can use it right on the spot here to change stuff. So the thickness is the height of this line, and the maximum width is how far out in width it goes again. You can see that I think I've messed something up here. It's not quite right. You can see that it's not tall enough at the bottom, so I can interactively change that. Even right now, I can try for a thickness of 29, for example. And then try that again. No, it still didn't change, eh? Let me try clicking the green flag. Yeah, and that's perfect now. You can see how we can interactively change that and modify it along the way. So if you want to go with with less of a thickness, for example, a little skinny bar, you could put a smaller number in here, like 10 or something, for example. You can change the starting position interactively here. So I can change this Y to 15, for example, and move it up the screen. Hi to Hattori Sonic, who's just joined us on the YouTube chat. Hey, tell us, I think we've heard from Hattori before. I'm sure I saw him, maybe it was in the YouTube chat for a different video at some point anyway. Say hi, tell us where you're from, and tell us a little bit about yourself if you want to shout out here, Hattori. Anyway, so yeah, this is another really cool way to do progress bars. Let me show you the code here. So we're just putting our pen down. We're setting our pen to that starting X coordinate, and then we're telling it to go up to the start Y, and then we're just moving our pen over by 1 and drawing another line from the bottom to the top. It's always drawing from that X coordinate up to the next spot, and it's just going to keep doing that for the number of times. So we've got a score here. We've got our score here, and again, we're doing a little formula to figure out how wide it should be, and the width that we're coming up here is the number of pixels wide that our thing is going to be. In this case, it's 274, or whatever that width is. And it's just going to draw a 1 pixel line every time that that our score increases. So if our score is like halfway along here, it's going to draw that number of lines along the horizontal axis here. Let me show you. I've done something with this thing that I don't usually do with the with these custom blocks, which is I've enabled the run without screen refresh function. And what that does is it runs this loop over and over and over again until it's done every single incarnation of it. Now that often will slow down your program, but in this case it really makes the drawing happen much faster. Watch what happens if I do this without screen refresh. It's going to try and draw the line, but it does it much more slowly. You can see that every time I let go, it redraws the line, or tries to redraw the line one step at a time. Let's change that height again to get that thing back up to a decent size here. Thickness, I forget what thickness I use, like 30, 50. And now I've messed up my line here, eh? All right, anyway, we don't need to spend any more time on this. I've kind of done enough of this right now. This code, I've broken it now, but it is working in the original thing. I'm going to have another look at it and maybe do some more tweaks after the show. Do remember that this particular block runs without screen refresh, which is really, really important here, because you want your code to work. Well, there we go. Yeah, it was the lack of screen refresh that was messing the code up here. So the one at the top obviously has a different height than it should have now, and it's been moved to a different position. But you can see how nicely and how quickly it's redrawing it using the pen tool. Now the downside to using this pen method, is that you cannot do it in front of any sprite. The pen always draws on the background of your game. So in the case of like Squid Game, for example, where I have moving background objects, you can see that there's actually a sprite here in the background that I'm using as my ground. I cannot use the background because then otherwise it wouldn't be able to slide along the screen here. So I wouldn't be able to use the pen tool on that because this sprite would be covering up the pen tool. Let me show you an example of that here. So you can see how, let's say if I move this cat to the back here. So the cat is now behind the other two progress bars, or it will be when I put it at the back. Let's try that one more time here. Every time I touch it, I bring it to the front again, I guess. See, it's at the back here. But if I do that in front of this bar and move it to the back, you can see that I've moved behind the framework here, but I'm still going to be in front of the red bar here. So you cannot use this on any project where you're using a sprite as the background behind this. It's got to be transparent, and that's why even in drawing this particular sprite here, the background for the clone version has white here. The background for the pen has transparency here because I need that background to be visible. Anyway, I think that's a really cool little idea, and I was very happy to play around with these this week. So you can feel free to grab any of these custom blocks and see what they're doing. I'm just looking at the chat here. So Jim's saying you could do horizontal lines too instead of vertical lines. Yeah, you can. It just takes a little bit of a modification of the code. The other point about these is sometimes you want your numbers to go backwards, right? If you want your score to, like a health bar, for example, as you take more damage, your health goes down, and you'll want that number to move backwards in that case. And that takes a little bit of a modification. And that's what I did in the Squid Game project here, where, let me show you my progress bar here. I actually took that cross multiplication number and I subtracted 100 minus the distance. And that's what got me from it's reversed the direction of the arrow going, so that as the number was going down, the value on the screen would go up. So it takes a little bit of math sometimes if you want a number to move in the opposite direction. And I'm sorry I don't have an example of that to show you here right now. I think I'm going to take all of this progress bar stuff and put it into a little bit more of a concise project that I'm going to share on YouTube as a standalone project, and that's something you can look forward to in the next couple of days. I've did a lot of work on this, and now that I'm actually doing it, I'm realizing that it's hard to do on the fly and show all the different possibilities without stopping and doing a lot of thinking about what I'm doing with the code. So I'll show you guys a little bit more of an insightful version of this later on. Okay, let's move along here. It's 10:38 and we're running out of time here. But so I had a little chat this week with my son Jeffrey, who you guys, most of you who've been with Chromeworks for a while will know. He's been the author of several of our best-selling games, including the Among Us Scratch Edition game and the Minecraft Tower Defense game. So Jeffrey's just a genius coder, and when he graduated from high school this year, he got a chance to move on and fulfill his lifelong ambition of learning to be an actual game designer for a game development company. He's moved off to Sweden to an elite Swedish gaming academy called Future Games. And he's been working there for the last couple of months, doing amazing work in their game development program. And I wanted to show you the latest project that he's been working on there. So we're going to be running these little sessions every couple of weeks here. Just keep just little letters from game school. I thought you guys would be interested in seeing the life of somebody who's actually living the dream and going off and learning how to be a video game designer at a school. So let's get right to that. I'm joined again by Jeffrey Tomec, former Chromeworks student who's now at game design school in Sweden. Welcome, Jeffrey. How's it going over there?
It's going pretty good. It's Sweden. It's still kind of crazy being here in the first place.
Yeah, moving all the way to Europe and going to school at age 18 is quite the adventure. So, game design school, you're a couple of months into it now, and you've been working on some interesting projects. I wanted to focus today on one of the first projects that you finished in your first weeks going on. Tell us a little bit about it. What's it called, and where did it come from?
Yeah, okay. So when we first got to school, we got this little project just to kind of for the teachers to check how well we actually knew what we were doing with this stuff. And to get us acquainted with the development engine we're using. So this was, we were supposed to make like a little top-down shooter game, not too different from the kind of stuff that you would throw together on Scratch at home when it came to the complexity of the assignment. Though it was these were two-people teams, and me and my partner went a little above and beyond with it, I think. So our game is called Pen and Spacer. It's a top-down shooter, and it's kind of 2D, but instead of it's a 2D game in a 3D space where you're playing as a little drawn ship on a piece of paper, and the piece of paper can bend and deform. In the case of the little vertical slice we put out, it turns into a cylinder on the second level, and then you go from being a ship flying on a flat plane to being wrapping around a cylindrical object.
Yeah, there's this moment in the gameplay footage that's really quite that really took me aback, and it's sort of the aha moment in watching this game where you think you're playing something on a flat surface, and then all of a sudden it starts bending, and you realize that you're playing on a 3D plane. So how did you come up with that idea?
So my partner, we were just talking about what to even do in the first place, and he had the idea for doing it on like pen and paper. That's what he wanted. He wanted to do a lot of the doodles and stuff. So that was kind of like from the outset, that was his idea. And then when I was thinking about how do I actually do the on paper thing, I didn't just want to have like a texture that was just like, this is paper and you're on paper. Like I wanted you to actually be on a piece of paper. And then when I started thinking about how I would do that, I realized that the technique I was planning to use, there was no reason the paper had to be flat.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I was thinking about ways I could screw with the paper not being flat to change the game and make it something more unique.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have come up with something unique. I'm not sure if I've seen anything quite like it before, where you're playing a 2D game on a surface that's scrolling in 3 dimensions. Very clever.
There certainly are a few. Having it switch between both, I don't know if I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's been a few shooters. Playing a shooter on a sphere is actually relatively common.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's been a few games that have been like, what if we take a 2D game, then just wrap the whole thing on like a planet that you're going around. Then
Right.
there's been a few others that have done. I've seen cylinders like a few times. None of it's super common.
Right. Anyway, yeah, super cool idea. You're getting good feedback on it?
Mm. No, it was. I think people were very impressed by the project.
Yeah, I certainly was. So are we going to be able to try it out at home at all? Or is there going to be any opportunity for that?
I don't see why not. I wasn't really thinking about releasing it just because I have some footage of it, and for my portfolio, that was really what I was worried about. But especially because I'm getting an itch.io page set up for the next game, which we'll probably be talking about in a little bit when it's been released. Then I might as well set up an itch for Pen and Spacer.
Okay, well, we'll let our audience know when that's ready, and that's awesome. So game design school's been going well. What's it like working on a team? I think that's one of the big things that's been different for you here, eh?
Well, turns out it really depends on the team. That's not too surprising. But in the case of Pen and Spacer, it was a great time. It wasn't like a huge group of people. It was just me and one other guy. So I was handling a lot of the programming and stuff, and he was a lot newer at this, so he was mostly handling like illustration and like getting all the drawings in, particle effects, a lot of the kind of peripheral elements.
Right. Well, it's a really impressive piece of work for how quickly you whipped it together. Anyway, it looks really professional. Okay, Jeffrey. So I think we're going to wrap it up for today. We're going to be back to check up on you as you progress through game school here. We understand you're just wrapping up a big 8-person project that's really exciting, and we'll be hearing some more about that in coming weeks.
Yeah, I'm really excited to show that off.
All right, excellent. Well, we're looking forward to it too. All right, well, from Sweden, this has been Jeffrey Tomec, and thanks so much for joining us, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, bye now. How cool is that? The first time that I saw the game and saw it against the sheet of paper, I thought that was cool. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any more interesting, suddenly the paper curves around and you're still playing the game. I was just quite stunned by that, frankly. I just think that's a fantastic little piece of programming, and I'm just so proud of my boy. He's doing amazing work over there, and we can't wait to show you his next project. If you want to follow Jeffrey, you can just look up his YouTube channel, Jeffrey Tomec. He's got a big 6 subscribers right now, and he's basically just he's using this as a professional portfolio, just posting all of the different projects that he's on. So if you want to follow Jeffrey through game school, just like I am, then by all means subscribe to his channel, and you'll see some really good stuff coming up in the next couple of months as he continues to work on this. And we'll keep you posted. I'm going to be coming back regularly. If you like this segment, let me know. I just figured that kids your age would really want to see somebody who's living the dream, as I said here. You guys all are obviously on this channel right now because you love making games, and maybe you've pondered the idea, can I do this for a living? Well, there are definitely ways to do that, and there are school programs you can go to where you learn nothing but game design. The program, I've called Jeffrey's program Hogwarts for game designers, and I really mean that. It's like he goes there every day and just makes games with his friends, and he couldn't be having more fun there. I'm so excited for him. Anyway, yeah, the chat is very impressed as well. They like what they're seeing there as well. One more little piece of film that I have for you today, and that is one of my co-op students, Kevin Dye. He's been working on a segment called Story Corner. We saw the first one, I believe, last week, and basically the idea again is that we're taking examples of digital storytelling, which is using Scratch as a tool for telling funny little joke stories and fun little animations and stuff like that. And we're asking Kevin to go inside and have a look at the code and teach us a little bit of something about how some of the code inside this storytelling project works. And the idea is hopefully we can help to propel you guys to become storytellers in Scratch as well. I think it's one of the most fantastic things you can do with Scratch, and so I'd like to teach more people to do this stuff. All right, let's look at Kevin's segment right now.
Hi everyone, welcome to Story Corners. My name is Kevin, and today we're going to take a look at a short animation called Homework, made by Laws of Science Changer. Without further ado, let's get straight to it. One thing that interested me was how he managed to create this wobbling effect for the words on the end screen. So let's take a look inside at how he did that. The code that creates the effect is right here. You'll soon notice that the ones that actually work while also staying in the center of the screen are sine, cos, and tan. These are trigonometry words you'll eventually learn in high school, so don't worry about them for now. In this case, we're going to talk about the cos a little, since this is what the code is using. Here's what a cos graph looks like. You notice that it goes up and down from 1 to -1 on the y-axis, and it goes infinitely on the x-axis. Now that we know what a cosine graph looks like, we can start talking about the code. As you can see, this is a forever loop code, so it has infinite duration. The first line of code here basically does the in and out effect. The numbers here control how far the y-axis will go up and down, and the intensity of the x-axis. Basically, how close the dips will be. Here's what it will look like on the graph. The return function here is pretty self-explanatory, and the math here has the same logic as the previous. Let's let this function make the word swing from one to another, like swing. The following two blocks of code control what the words will look like. The first block of code controls the size of the words. Opposite from the previous two lines of code, the first number here controls the x-axis, and the second number here controls the y-axis. Basically, the first number controls how fast the words will do the effects, and the second number will control how close the words will come towards you. The extra number here controls the percentage of the size, basically how big the words will be. Now onto the last block of code. The last block of code is different from the rest. You'll notice that it has no cosine or any trigonometry variables. This is because the second block of code controls the shape of the words and how the words will appear as default or with or without the defect. A friendly reminder that you can use this code for anything, not just words, you can also use it for objects, pictures, etc. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more awesome Story Corner videos.
Thanks for that, Kevin. So I'm going to be posting the link for that story file if you guys are interested in that sine, cosine code and grabbing it for your own projects. I will include a link down below that should help you get there. Well, that is about all the content I have for this week, guys. I'll be back next week with an update on whether my Squid Game project is alive still or not. I have a feeling it's probably going to be gone by then. And I'm sure we'll have lots of other content for me. I'm not quite sure what I'm working on for next week, but I'll be back with another game tutorial. Meanwhile, part 3 of Squid Game is coming out at 11 o'clock, so just in just a couple of minutes we'll be releasing that, and that will be the final part of our Squid Game series, which is increasingly looking like it might be nerfed or nuked right off of the Scratch server. So play it while you can, guys. All right, I am out of here, everybody. I'll hang around in Discord a little bit to chat with my users there. But for the rest of you, I will see you next week.